Listen.
Congressman Paul, I believe you are the only man on the stage who opposes the war in Iraq, who would bring the troops home as quickly as almost immediately, sir. Are you out of step with your party? Is your party out of step with the rest of the world? If either of those is the case, why are you seeking its nomination?
Well, I think the party has lost its way because the conservative wing of the Republican Party always advocated a non-interventionist foreign policy. Senator Robert Taft didn't want to be in NATO. George Bush won the election in year 2000 campaigning on a humble foreign policy. No nation building, no policing of the world. Republicans were elected to end the Korean War. The Republicans were elected to end the Vietnam War. There's a strong tradition of being anti-war in the Republican Party. It is the constitutional position. It is the advice of the founders to follow a non-interventionist foreign policy. Stay out of entangling alliances. Be friends with countries. Negotiate and talk with them and trade with them. Just think of the tremendous improvement relationship with Vietnam. We lost 60,000 men. We came home in defeat. Now we go over there and invest in Vietnam. So there's a lot of merit to the advice of the founders and following the Constitution. And my argument is that we shouldn't go to war so carelessly. When we do, the wars don't end.
Congressman, you don't think that changed with the 9/11 attack, sir?
What changed?
The non-interventionist policies.
No, non-intervention was a major contributing factor. Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years. We've been in the Middle East. I think Reagan was right. We don't understand the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics. So right now we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Are you suggesting we invited the 9/11 attack, sir?
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. And they are delighted that we're over there because Osama bin Laden has said, I am glad you're over on our sand because we can target you so much easier. They've already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
Wendell, may I make a comment on that? That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement. As someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11. And I would ask the congressman to withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
Congressman?
I believe very sincerely that the CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists. And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
Can I have 30 seconds, please?
No, wait a second.
Yeah, man. He did it. Yes, it's pretty interesting, like, especially when you think about where we are today as far as, the majority of us, the majority of people on, whether it be on the right, on the libertarian side, even on, like old school liberals, and are understanding what Eisenhower said when he first coined military-industrial complex, right? This wasn't. It's interesting because Eisenhower said it. However, during this time, it wasn't really. I mean, it was being floated out there, but not to the extent that it is now. And maybe that's just because of the how quickly information moves now. But yeah, just to see him at that time, as far as most people would say he hit the nail on the head. That he hit the nail on the head with that response and with that statement. And he usually does, if you ever listen to a lot of his stuff. But I just thought that, especially given where we are now and seeing Giuliani where he was then, obviously he was feeding a lot off of the energy, that we all had as a collective from after being attacked. It's, people get brought together and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things where, obviously every nation propagandizes its own people. To what extent? That's the question. I would so go far as to say that probably the poorer the nation, probably the less propaganda is going on, just because, it's just not a feasible thing to do and not a profitable thing to do. So if you, like I, correlate propaganda to prosperity, then we're probably we're probably pretty high up there on the list as far as propagandized. And that's one of the points. What were we doing there? What was going on with the war? How we got into the war? I mean, once you start doing a deep dive into that, it opens up a new avenue of what's going on. Like, what the hell's going on? And until you get there and start figuring out and start chipping away a little bit, and again, even if you just have a surface understanding of all this stuff, that's okay, because most people don't even have that, right? Most people just get the title of the article, right? Whatever that article is, whatever's being fed to them, whatever the short on Instagram is, or the reel, or the short on YouTube, or whatever. That's what most people get. Most people get, at most, a 30-second clip, and they run with it, and they'll promulgate that as fact. It's crazy. Without any, people say something on the internet in a 30-second clip, and people will go and say it as a factual thing, as long as the person that's telling it to them is saying it in a serious way. So I think that's one of the things we have to do as a society, at least try to help other people get an understanding on these issues and these topics. Try to just tease out these issues a little bit. Try to do a little bit. You don't have to spend all your time and energy, on this stuff. But you just have to kind of have an understanding. The worldview that I have, why do I have that? Right? Why do I think and see, and why do I feel this way? It's generally, you're getting the information from somewhere. Who gave you that information? How did you acquire it? What did you search to get that? And everything is algorithm, and everything's an algorithm. Everything is based on how to get you to view things for longer, and for so you're like feeding it's feeding on itself. But yeah, just give Ron Paul a look, man. Like, take a look at him. We'll get into some of his Fed stuff later. He's a really an interesting guy. His son too. We'll do some more videos on them. They've been great. They've always been, it's a very rare instance where you can pull a Ron or Rand Paul clip up years and years later, and they've changed their views, or they were wrong. And that, in my book, means something. And I think most people's books should mean something. They've been extremely consistent, and they usually turn out that the argument they were making back then had already been thought about, and they came to a good conclusion. Thank you guys so much. Give me a like, give me a share, give me a subscribe if you would please. That helps us out a lot. Appreciate you all, and we will see you again very soon.